Stories of the Bible. Jesus feeds the 5,000. This is Jesus,
Hey-o!
who is the Son of God and the Savior of the world. While Jesus was on earth, he taught everyone about God's love. He did many miracles and healed people of their sickness.
Oh, hey, everyone!
A huge crowd kept following him wherever he went because they saw his miraculous signs as he healed the sick. A crowd started to gather around Jesus. There were 5,000 men and many more women and children. Turning to Philip, he asked,
Hey, Philip!
"Where can we buy bread to feed all these people?" You see, Jesus was testing Philip, for he already knew what he was going to do. Philip replied, "Even if we worked for months, we wouldn't have enough money to feed them."
Hey, I got an idea.
Then Andrew spoke up. "There's a young boy here with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what good is that with this huge crowd?" Jesus said, "Tell everyone to sit down."
Right, everyone, sit down.
Then Jesus took the loaves, gave thanks to God, and gave them to the people.
There you go.
Afterward, he did the same with the fish. And they all ate as much as they wanted.
Want some more?
I'm all good, thanks.
After everyone was full, Jesus told his disciples, "Now gather the leftovers, so that nothing is wasted."
You got it.
So they picked up the pieces and filled 12 baskets with scraps, left by the people who had eaten from the 5 barley loaves and 2 fish.
That was pretty good. Do I need to be up here? I love the guy that was offered some extras, and he's like, "I'm all good, thanks." He was polite about it, you know? I've had my fill. I was wondering this as I was preparing. Do you say grace before a meal? Does anyone? You can raise your hand, even you don't have to tell me, but I've heard a variety of different ways that people pray to give thanks before a meal. This is one of those opportunities where if you were willing to volunteer to just say like a little line, like I'm looking at one person just to single them out, and they're like, I don't want to do it. But there's a song, and it sounds like the tune to Superman. Anyway, thank you, God, for giving us food. Am I doing it right? Yeah. Anyway, you don't have to do the full one, but there's such a variety of different ways that people say grace. And did you notice in the video where this one's from John's gospel, his account of this miracle, and God gives thanks. Actually, Jesus gives thanks before the meal, and so they say grace. And so I thought for the start of this series, it's called Unpack, and we're going to unpack and get to the application a little bit later. This thing's been with me a few different places. It's almost time to be retired, but what I think is cool about in this scene is that Jesus actually blesses God, not the food. He gives kind of a blessing. He says, "Praise be to you." He gives thanks. And so I was thinking about what did they actually say? And so the closest English translation of what we think that he would have said is, "Praise be to you, O Lord our God, King of the world, who makes bread to come forth from the earth and who provides for all that you have created." That's kind of the blessing. And so the idea here is that God has blessed us by providing bread from the earth, and we give thanks to God for what he's already given to us, which is the blessing. And so we thank God for blessing us with food. So I don't know if you've ever thought of it that way. Sometimes I as a pastor, I get the short straw sometimes, and people are like, "Oh, pastor, you're going to pray for everything all the time." And it's like, I thought we were all supposed to pray. But so I get to do that sometimes at family dinners and things like that. But this is the idea, is that actually the blessing has already happened. And so think of it this way. We give thanks, but he gives the blessing. So we don't ask for a blessing. We say thanks for the blessing that we just received. And so I just love that idea. So Unpack is the series that we're in. That's something that we just unpacked, grace. So think about it. I know that one didn't have the same ring to it as the Superman theme, but we're going to unpack things this summer. And so the idea of the Unpack series is that there are things, even when I listen to podcasts and if I'm hearing an interview or if I even hear other preachers talk, they often get to a point where they say, let's unpack that. And so the first thing is that you kind of open up to see and reveal the contents. And so when we're reading a passage in the Bible or we're talking about any given topic, we start out and we get kind of the basic kind of outside kind of framework of it. But then we have an opportunity to kind of open it up, to unpack it, to see what's actually inside. And so that's the idea. The other side of that could be that there's sometimes opportunities for us to let go of baggage. And so sometimes it's not the good stuff that's packed, it's the stuff that you've been carrying for far too long that you actually need to just drop off and because then you could have kind of a lighter load. And so this is the beginning of it in a family service on this holiday weekend, and so we're glad you're here. And so this miracle that we just heard that was in kind of video and cartoony form, wasn't that good? That was from John's gospel. But what I love about this is the only miracle during Jesus' ministry that's in all 4 gospel accounts. And so they all have just a little bit of different kind of point of view, point of reference for who's witnessing it and the information. In this one, it's the only one where it talks about Philip being asked upon and things like that. And so I wanted us to kind of break down the story. What I did, I'm not going to show you all of this because it would be really fine print. It was hard to look at. But I took Matthew's account, put it next to Luke's account, put that next to Mark's account, and put that next to John's account. That's all 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And I noticed how, although Mark is a shorter Gospel account by word count, it was the longest account of this miracle. So that was cool. But we're looking primarily at John's, but I just wanted to share with you kind of the breakdown that's common in all of them. This is what happened, is that Jesus with his disciples went to a remote area to be alone and to rest. They had been doing lots of ministry. And so in one account, there was actually the loss of one of his friends, John the Baptist. That was one of the catalysts. But the other showed that actually the disciples had gone off and done ministry. They'd been training for a while. Jesus sent them off. They came back with a report. And it was saying how they were so busy at times, they didn't even have time to eat. And so that's kind of something to set the tone for this. So crowds followed. In some accounts, it kind of implies that they got wind that Jesus was in this area. And so people actually went by foot. When you hear that something's going on, do you notice how word travels quickly? Have you noticed that? And so in this, crowds followed. And really, even if this isn't the word used in each of the accounts, this is what's implied. Jesus had compassion on the crowds that followed. And so he had compassion on them. And they imply that there's nothing here to eat. It was getting late. And in each of the accounts, we find out that all they had was 5 loaves, and they were barley loaves. They were really small loaves, 5 loaves and 2 fish. You're going to need to remember that in a moment. And everyone was told to sit down. We think that it was groups of 50 and 100 or 50 100s, and that would add up to the 5,000 plus. And then Jesus, he took this bread and the fish separately, blessed, broke, and gave it to the disciples. And it was the disciples that actually went and shared it with all these groups that were sitting. So the disciples were all part of this. This is the key, that all ate as much as they wanted. Remember the guy that was like, I'm all good, thanks. Like that was kind of funny. I liked it. So they all had not just enough, not just an appetizer, but they were full. And then there were leftovers. How much? There were 12 baskets. And so 5,000 men, including the women and children, were fed that day. And so that's what's common among all of these. And so hopefully you've been paying attention. Who doesn't like trivia? That's a trick question. We all love it, don't we? And so here's what we're going to do. We're going to have our first question up here. I hope you've been paying attention. This is one of those ones where you might need to yell it out. I don't know, some of you can't read, so I'll read it for us. Which body of water did Jesus and his disciples cross? A, Grand Lake. B, Bay of Fundy. C, Nashwauk River. Zach's got it, I think. D, is it the Sea of Galilee? Let's check. Do we have the answer? Oh, you did it. We did it. All right, that's the first one. But that's just the first question. Let's see how you do on the next one. Let's see, what's the next one? Okay, how much food did they have? A, 6 foot sub. Have you ever been to a place where they had Subway and they had the big thing? B is 2 party pizzas. That was the level up party, I guess. C is, a 10-pack of chicken McNuggets. What sauce would you put on the side? Optional, whatever. And then D, I keep hearing D. That's interesting. 5 loaves and 2 fish. Let's just check. Let's make sure. You guys were paying attention. Did you read my notes? All right, we need another question. This one might stump you. Where did the people sit down? A, lazy boy recliners. B, hammocks. C, ski slopes at Crab Mountain. Or D, the grassy slopes. There seems to be a theme here. Let's check. Grassy slopes. Nice. All right. I think we have another one. Let's just while we're at it. How many men were fed? A, 12. B, 2,500. C, 1 million. No, I can't do that voice. Or D, that's it. Just, can we scratch that from the edit, please? D would be 5,000. All right. There seems to be a trend here. I think we have another. Do we? I think we have another. How many baskets of leftovers? There seems to be. Are there locusts in here? There's this underlying sound. Was it A, 5, this many? Was it B, 6? Did you say it was C, 10? No takers? Was it D? Okay, let's check. All right. I think we got it. Is that good? Is that good? We got it. You guys did it. So next time that it's time to preach on the feeding of the 5,000, the answer is D. I guess that's the bottom line for today. So I was thinking about Philip, how he kind of stood out in the video and in John's account. Philip's a good guy. Have you wondered, why do we hear about Philip? Why did Jesus, out of the 12 and out of the others that might have been close by, why did Jesus turn and ask Philip a question? I love this. When we're reading it in John, it actually said, turning to Philip, he asked, where can we buy bread to feed all these people? And the next verse says that he was testing Philip, for he already knew what he was going to do. I love how one author said that he was actually stretching Philip's faith. He was wondering what he would say, but one of the other reasons that we think that he asked Philip is because of the location that they were in. They had crossed to the far side of the Bay of Fundy. Nashwauk River? Which one was it again? D. Oh, yeah, sorry. They crossed to the far side of the Sea of Galilee in Luke's gospel, it says, toward the town of Bethsaida. And in John's gospel, the one that we're reading, it actually says in the first chapter, Philip was from Bethsaida. That's also Andrew and Simon Peter's hometown. So one of the thoughts on why he would have asked Philip is because Philip would have known, is there a McDonald's nearby? Is there a Greco? Is there a Subway? Is there, I don't know, something like that. They could have gone to one of these places. So that was one of the reasons that he actually shared that. Another is because Philip, we know, had a certain belief, a certain faith in Jesus about who he is. What I love about the early interaction, actually it's in the first chapter of John. Philip is the one that goes to Nathanael and tells him, we have found the very person that Moses and the prophets wrote about. His name is Jesus, the son of Joseph from Nazareth. And what I love is that the line that we know is Nazareth, can anything good come from Nazareth? But you forget about the testimony that Philip shares is that he actually believes we found the one and his name is Jesus. We know who the prophet is, the one that they wrote about. And so part of the idea is that at the end of the chapter, or at the end of the story, I should say, after they see the miracle that everyone's fed, even that one guy that was like, no, I can't even have extra, and they have the 12 baskets of leftovers, the people, they said, when they saw this, surely he is the prophet we have been expecting. And so Jesus had this knowledge that Philip knows who I am, and I'm going to continue to show him that not only have I fulfilled what's written from Moses and the prophets, but I'm going to far exceed. I'm going to be far beyond what they expected and what they shared. And so what Moses said way back in the 5th book, Deuteronomy is what it's called, he said that the Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from among your own brothers. You must listen to him. And we believe that's Jesus. And so Philip, he knew this. But here's what Philip's response was. One way to say it is, even if we worked for months, we wouldn't have enough money to feed them. We've done the math. In some versions and translations, it says right in line. In others, there's a little asterisk. And you go to the bottom and you see that it says 200 denarii or denarius. And so 200 of these, that would be 200 full days of work. Now keep in mind, there's a Sabbath, and so don't worry, I did the math for us. That'd be about approximately 228 days, accounting for Sabbath. So think of it this way. In John's account, it says that it was nearly time for the Jewish Passover. And so if you counted all that time, 7 full months and then a couple weeks afterward, you would be going from Passover to Hanukkah. Or in our terminology, you'd be going from Lent to Advent. And so that's how long. But here's the thing. It wasn't to have enough that someone would be like, I'm all good, thanks. It would be just enough so that everyone could have a bite. And that's not really Jesus' purpose here. He wasn't there to give them an appetizer. He was there to satisfy them. And so it's just cool that it would take that long for them working to barely have enough for people to have a nibble. And so he's actually far surpassing what Moses, even one of the other prophets, Elisha. And so I was reading about this. This is one of those short little things that you might read in your daily plan if you're reading the Bible in a year. What I found, this is just a couple verses where someone came from a place I can't pronounce, and they came with 20 loaves of barley bread, and they said to Elisha, give it to the people so they can eat. And that the servant said, feed 100 people with only this? And so these barley loaves were small. They were like snack size. They were like not even JBC size. They were like really small. And so these, he says, you know, imagine if you had 20 of those, that's a little bit more than 5. Can we do the math? It's a little bit more, right? It's a little bit more. And he's going to feed 100 people. That's a little bit less than the 5,000. And so Elisha says this, give it to the people so they can eat, for this is what the Lord says. Everyone will eat, and there will be even some left over. And when they gave it to the people, there was plenty for all, and some left over, just as the Lord had promised. That's just a short little story that's similar back in 2 Kings chapter 4. But here's what's interesting about ours. Not only did Jesus do something similar, he actually far surpassed it. With much less, he actually fed more. They had more than enough, and there were 12 baskets. Remember what I said? One of the reasons that they were going to this area was because they couldn't find even enough time to eat. And here they actually have leftovers. Maybe not just for one day, but maybe for more. Some people think that 12, that's another one of those numbers where it just feels really complete. And so it's showing that, no, things are complete when they're found in Jesus. That's one thing. Another is that there's 12 disciples. There's 12 tribes of Israel. That's another thing. 12 months of the year. However you want to look at it, it just feels like by having 12 full baskets of leftovers from, remember, only 5 small loaves and 2 fish. It was really, there was a young boy there who maybe his mom packed him lunch. I don't know why no one else packed lunch. Maybe they thought that they were going to leave early. But here, that was enough for everyone to be full, for everyone to be satisfied. That's good news. The other thing we noticed is that even though Jesus, he needed rest, and his disciples needed rest, they were going off to be by themselves. They're in this area where there's no buildings, there's nothing really for miles, we think. And so he's there to get rest, but people, remember, caught wind. They knew that he was there, so they followed. And so when he saw the people, he had compassion on them. And so I want to think about this for just a moment. Him having compassion on them, I think that it's three different ways. Remember, it's in Matthew, it's in Mark, it's in Luke, and we're reading in John. So it's in all four accounts. What we notice in Matthew and Luke is that by having compassion on the people, Jesus was healing their sick. What we learn in Mark and in Luke is that by having compassion on people, he was teaching them. And what we learn in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, that's all four of them, that he was feeding them. And so compassion has different kind of applications. He's always feeding them. In some, he's healing their sick. In others, he's teaching them. But he's always, in this case, he's feeding them. And why did he have compassion on them? Well, in one of the passages, we learn that he felt like the people coming to him were like sheep without a shepherd. Now, where did the people lie down? Was it the ski slopes? Was it the lazy boy recliner? What was D again? He had everyone sit down on the grassy slopes. That seems to remind me of something. So he felt like the people were like sheep without a shepherd. When I read Psalm 23, the very second verse says this: he makes me lie down in green pastures. Jesus is the good shepherd. He's the one. He's our Lord. He's the one making us to sit down and then to satisfy us, beside still waters even. And so I love this connection with Psalm 23 that many of us know. The Lord is my shepherd. Well, Jesus is the Lord. He's the good shepherd. And this is the thing about compassion. We've talked about this before, and maybe not in a family service, but what I've noticed when Jesus has compassion on people, it's actually not just that he had a feeling. Have you ever noticed that? It's not just that he sat down and said, you know what, I really feel for those people. Too bad for them. And that it was just kind of inside. No, when he has compassion on someone, it means that he actually does something about it. So I want you to hear this. Compassion leads to action. Compassion leads to action. When we're reading in Matthew's account, it says that Jesus saw huge crowds as he stepped from the boat, and he had compassion on them. It's not just that he felt compassion for them, is that he actually did something about it. Remember, he was either healing them or teaching them, but he definitely fed all of them. In Mark's account, it says, he had compassion on them because they were like what we just learned, like sheep without a shepherd, which means a lot more than just the 23rd Psalm. It even can mean it in a military way, given the location that they were in and at that time. But that key is that he had compassion on them, not just that he felt compassion for them. So he didn't just feel compassion, he acted upon compassion. This is the other thing that I really want us to know, and we're getting close to the end, is that Jesus was moved with compassion. He wasn't just sitting back on a lazy boy feeling compassion. He was moved, as in he actually did something about it. So Jesus was moved with compassion, and he asked his disciples to take action. And guess what? We're his disciples. We need to be moved by the compassion of Jesus and actually take action. And so this would be what I would recommend. Before we apply everything, let your action be fueled by the compassion of Jesus. I'll say that one more time just in case you missed it. Let your action be fueled by the compassion of Jesus. What better fuel? So you can help Jesus by helping others. And I think this is a good reminder too, is that we can actually trust God with our physical needs. We know that we can trust him with our spiritual needs, but I think this is trying to show us we can trust God with our physical needs. Earlier when we were praying together, there was actually nothing too small or too big to both celebrate and to ask for others to pray for, because we can trust God with those things. And compassion leads to action. And this is another reminder for this. This is a great room to say it. You're never too young or too old to help. Ever. I love this idea too, is that in one of the scenes, it says that Jesus, he kept giving bread to the disciples. And the idea in this is that time and again, if you read through the gospel accounts, you'll see that he finds the disciples are confused by what happened, even after it's happened. And it wasn't the only time that he fed a lot of people. There were other times where he fed like 4,000. That's still impressive, by the way. And each time, they didn't quite understand the miracle that was taking place. And he would ask them about it, and he would say, don't you still understand? But here's the great thing, and this is still for all ages. You don't have to understand to obey his command. We don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to understand to obey his command. Well, we're going to apply things now before the team comes up. But to apply this, we're going to need some help. So I know there's some kids in here. There's some big kids too. But I need some help. And what I need is, 3 or 6 people that are able to carry a bucket. Do I have some volunteers? If there's, we'll start with kids. If there's a volunteer, yes, why don't you come on up? And don't worry, I'm going to fill the bucket here in a second. And so if you're willing to help, you just have to be able to carry a bucket. Are you willing? I have 6 of them, so the first 6 people to come up, you can help me. How about that? And so here's what we're going to do. The first 6 to grab a bucket, I'm going to fill the bucket, and you're going to help with the people. And maybe you can tag team together. Here's what we're going to do. You see this thing? Do you know what this is? I wonder what's in it. Maybe my t-shirts from that time that I went on vacation without them. Oh. It's not my stinky socks. There are fishes in here. There are goldfish in here. Now here's what I need help with. There's a lot of people in this room. There's about, would you say 5,000? Plus men and women and children and everything. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put some of these in your bucket, and you're going to go and you're going to share them with everyone that you can, and then we're going to see how many leftovers there are after, okay? So you can go, someone start down this section, someone go to that one, and then we'll go to the next one, and we'll see how we do with this. Goldfish. These are cheddar. Cheddar wasn't in the original miracle, and so these are all sealed, so if you can't eat them, that's okay. I still have some more here. I actually have a lot more. And we'll use these other days if you want. And if you run out, come back for more. I have them.
Okay, I'm full.
You're full? I'm all good, thanks. Would you like some more? Do more people need them? Okay. Why don't you take some more? And don't worry, I have lots. And so what Jesus did, he said grace. He actually shared a blessing to God because God had already shared a blessing to them. Do you need some more? And then we'll see if there's any leftovers. Yeah, thank you guys. And if you take them, make sure everyone can get one. You don't have to eat them. You can leave them for later. That's a pretty good amount. Why don't you take them back? And we'll see if all are satisfied. We'll see if there's enough for everyone. Do you need some more? You do? Awesome. Thanks for the help. Nice. Do you need some more? Thank you. All right. Make sure at least everyone can have them. And then we'll see what's left over. Thank you. Do you still need some? Do you still need some more? Thank you. Thanks for helping. Do you want this one? Oh, yeah, everyone's got to get them. That's true. That's a good point. Yeah, all includes. This is good. How are we doing? We still need some more? I hope there's enough. Whew. Let's see. Do you think that's good? Yeah. All right. Do you think you still need some more? Okay. Thanks for serving. This is great. Do you still need more? Okay. Yeah, he just kept giving them bread and fish until everyone had enough, and then they collected like 12 baskets. Do you still need more? You still need more? I can't believe it. I thought there might be about 5,000 here. Let's see. Thank you. Do we still need more? And once you're done, we'll bring back, we're not going to let anything be wasted. Do you still need more? Or did everyone get it? So do you have any leftovers? Okay, now what you need to do, thank you. Bring your leftovers up. And we'll make sure none are wasted. So, if anyone's not having them, we're going to collect some leftovers. And that's how we're going to wrap up. Do you want to collect some leftovers? And we'll go get it. All good? Everyone's good? Everyone got what they needed? I'm going to have mine in just a minute. I wanted to make sure everyone else has some first. Oh, good, thanks. So, can you give a round of applause to all the kids who just helped by serving? Thank you, guys. You can leave your buckets right up here. We're going to stack our buckets. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, put them right in. Thank you very much. That's awesome. Thank you. And make sure you have your own, too. You can bring your bucket back, though, if you want. Did you get your own? Thank you. Everyone got some? And so that's the story. Hopefully you remember I worked it out so the answers happen to be D, but the answer's not always D. I don't want you to be led astray here. But that's it. Jesus, he had compassion on the people, the crowd. His disciples also needed to eat, but he used his disciples to help feed the people. He actually involved them in it. It stretched their faith, and then everyone had more than enough.